A Nation's Dawn, the American Revolution. The American Revolution stands as a pivotal moment in world history, a defining chapter that reshaped the future of an entire continent. It was a time of great upheaval and change, where 13 colonies dared to challenge the mightiest empire on Earth, the British Empire, in a quest for autonomy and self-governance. The colonists, fueled by a fervent desire for liberty and self-determination, embarked on a perilous journey that would forever alter the course of human events. Their resolve was tested in countless battles and through immense hardships. The story of the American Revolution is one of courage, sacrifice, and unwavering belief in the principles of freedom and equality. It is a narrative rich with tales of heroism and the relentless pursuit of justice. It is a testament to the human spirit's capacity to overcome seemingly insurmountable odds in the pursuit of a better tomorrow. The bravery and determination of those who fought for independence continue to inspire us today. This revolution, born on the battlefields of a fledgling nation, would inspire generations to come and ignite the flames of democracy across the globe. The ideals of liberty and justice were not confined to America, but echoed worldwide. This essay delves into the heart of the American Revolution, exploring its causes, its key events, and its lasting legacy on the world. We will examine the motivations behind the revolution and the pivotal moments that defined it. From the halls of power in London to the battlefields of America, we will witness the struggle for independence unfold. The decisions made in the British Parliament and the actions taken by colonial assemblies played crucial roles in the conflict. The sacrifices made, the battles fought, and the ideals enshrined in the Declaration of Independence would lay the foundation for a new nation and serve as a beacon of hope for countless others seeking liberation. The Declaration's powerful words continue to resonate. Join us as we journey back to the birth of a nation, to understand the events that shaped a nation and continue to resonate in the hearts and minds of people worldwide. The American Revolution's impact is felt far beyond its time. The American Revolution was not just a war for independence, it was a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit in its quest for freedom. It stands as a powerful reminder of what can be achieved when people unite for a common cause. Seeds of discontent. Life in colonial America. The seeds of the American Revolution were sown long before the first shots were fired. In the 13 colonies that dotted the eastern coast of North America, a unique society had taken root, far removed from the halls of power in Great Britain. The colonists, many of whom had crossed the Atlantic in search of religious freedom and economic opportunity, had carved out lives for themselves in this new land. They had built towns, established farms, and developed a strong sense of self-reliance. However, the relationship between Great Britain and its American colonies was not always harmonious. The British government, operating under the economic theory of mercantilism, viewed the colonies as a source of raw materials and a market for its manufactured goods. Laws were passed that restricted colonial trade, limited manufacturing, and required colonists to house British troops in their homes. Over time, a sense of resentment began to grow among the colonists. They felt increasingly disconnected from the mother country and chafed under the weight of British regulations. The colonists valued their hard-won freedoms and bristled at what they perceived as interference in their affairs. This growing discontent, simmering beneath the surface, would eventually erupt into open rebellion. The stage was set for a clash of ideologies, a battle between a mighty empire and its determined colonies, fighting for the right to chart their own destiny. The American Revolution was not a spontaneous eruption. It was the culmination of years of simmering tensions and a growing sense of injustice. The road to revolution. Taxation without representation. The year 1763 marked a significant turning point in the relationship between Great Britain and its American colonies. setting the stage for a series of events that would ultimately lead to revolution. Following the costly French and Indian War, which had pitted Britain against France and its Native American allies, the British government faced a mounting national debt. The war had drained the British treasury, and the government was desperate to find new sources of revenue. To replenish its coffers, Parliament, under the leadership of Prime Minister George Grenville, enacted a series of revenue-raising measures aimed squarely at the colonies. These measures were seen as necessary by the British government, but were deeply resented by the colonists. The first of these measures was the Sugar Act of 1764, which imposed a tax on molasses and other goods imported into the colonies. This act was intended to raise revenue for the British treasury and to regulate trade within the empire. The colonists, accustomed to a degree of autonomy in their economic affairs, viewed this act as a violation of their rights. They had long enjoyed a level of self-governance and were unaccustomed to such direct interference from the British government. They argued that they should not be subjected to taxation without representation in Parliament. This principle was deeply rooted in their belief in the rights of Englishmen, which they felt were being denied to them. The cry of no taxation without representation became a rallying cry for colonists who felt increasingly marginalized by the British government. This slogan encapsulated their growing sense of injustice and their demand for a voice in the decisions that affected their lives. They argued that it was unjust for Parliament to levy taxes upon them without their consent or the presence of elected representatives to voice their concerns. This lack of representation was seen as a fundamental violation of their rights. The colonists maintained that they were loyal subjects of the Crown, but insisted on the same rights and privileges enjoyed by their counterparts in England. They believed that their loyalty to the Crown should be reciprocated with fair treatment and respect for their rights. The stage was set for a showdown between Great Britain and its American colonies. Tensions were high, and both sides were preparing for a confrontation that seemed increasingly inevitable. The issue of taxation without representation struck at the very heart of the relationship, challenging the very principles upon which the British Empire was built. It called into question the legitimacy of British authority over the colonies and the nature of their relationship. The colonies, emboldened by a sense of injustice and a growing belief in their right to self-determination, were prepared to resist these measures, even if it meant resorting to arms. The seeds of revolution had been sown, and the path to independence was set in motion. Section 4. The Boston Massacre. A spark ignites. The tensions between Great Britain and its American colonies reached a boiling point in Boston on the evening of March 5, 1770. The city, a hotbed of resistance to British policies, had become a powder keg of unrest. The presence of British troops, sent to enforce order and quell dissent, only heightened the tensions. On that fateful night, a group of colonists gathered outside the customs house, taunting a lone British sentry. As the crowd grew larger and more agitated, reinforcements arrived, led by Captain Thomas Preston. The soldiers, facing a barrage of snowballs, stones, and insults, fired into the crowd. 5 colonists were killed, including Crispus Attucks, a man of African descent who became a symbol of the struggle against oppression. The Boston Massacre, as it quickly became known, sent shockwaves throughout the colonies. News of the event, fueled by propaganda and exaggerated accounts, spread like wildfire. The colonists, outraged by what they perceived as a brutal act of aggression, demanded justice. The incident further inflamed anti-British sentiment and solidified the growing divide between the colonies and the mother country. The Boston Massacre served as a potent symbol of British tyranny and a rallying cry for those who believed that colonial liberties were under threat. The blood spilled on the streets of Boston that night would stain the relationship between Great Britain and its American colonies, pushing them closer to the brink of war. Section 5. A Tea Party heard round the world. In 1773, the British Parliament passed the Tea Act, granting the East India Company a monopoly on tea sales in the American colonies. This act was seen as a desperate attempt to save the financially troubled company, which had been struggling due to various factors, including competition and mismanagement. While the act was intended to bail out the struggling company, it was seen by the colonists as yet another example of taxation without representation. The colonists were already frustrated with the British government's continuous imposition of taxes and laws without their consent. They viewed it as a blatant attempt to undermine colonial businesses and force them to buy British tea at inflated prices. Colonial merchants, who had been smuggling tea to avoid taxes, saw their livelihoods threatened by this new legislation. On the night of December 16, 1773, a group of colonists disguised as Native Americans boarded 3 British ships docked in Boston Harbor. This group, known as the Sons of Liberty, had meticulously planned this act of rebellion. They dumped 342 chests of tea, worth an estimated 9,659 pounds, over $1 million today, into the harbor in a brazen act of defiance. This dramatic gesture was meant to send a clear message to the British authorities. This event, which became known as the Boston Tea Party, sent shockwaves across the Atlantic. News of the bold protest spread quickly, reaching the ears of both colonial and British leaders. The British government, outraged by this blatant challenge to its authority, responded with a series of punitive measures known as the Coercive Acts. These acts were intended to reassert control over the increasingly defiant colonies. These acts, designed to punish Massachusetts and bring the colonies to heel, closed the port of Boston, curtailed local government, and allowed for the quartering of British troops in private homes. The harsh measures were meant to isolate Massachusetts and serve as a warning to other colonies. The Coercive Acts, far from quelling the rebellion, had the opposite effect. Instead of submission, the acts fueled anger and resentment among the colonists. They galvanized colonial resistance and united the colonies in opposition to British rule. Leaders from different colonies began to coordinate their efforts, realizing that unity was their best chance for success. The colonists saw these acts as an assault on their fundamental rights and freedoms, proving that peaceful petitions for redress were futile. The failure of their petitions only strengthened their resolve to take more drastic measures. The Boston Tea Party marked a turning point, pushing the colonies and Great Britain closer to the brink of war. It became a symbol of colonial resistance and the fight for independence. The stage was set for a momentous clash, a battle for freedom that would determine the fate of a nation. The events that followed would lead to the American Revolutionary War, a conflict that would change the course of history forever.